Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Yissilmissil Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissel, and today we have a very special guest. We we have a very important person. He's had quite a career in in protection of very important people. His name is John Carman, and he is a former U.S. Secret Service agent and has top clearance for whew, since 1974. He's been part of the White House Division and Foreign Missions Division. He has worked for the San Diego Police Department, the U.S. Mint Police Treasury, the U.S. Customs Service, the U.S. Immigration Service, the Food and Drug Administration, Fish and Wildlife Service, and former private investigator, security consultant, law enforcement historian, research specialist. So we're going to have a lot to talk about today. And it's an honor to have him here on the show. And we are going to invite him in right now. We're going to get this started. I hope you're all doing well today. All right, John, can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so I was just telling the audience here, your short list of your accomplishments and your work. I
That is a short list.
I just I'm overly impressed with it,
Right.
and I know we're gonna have a lot to discuss. So I guess first off, we were talking before the show about former President Carter, and that you had actually were expecting a few other hosts to talk to you about this, including John B. Wells and someone that you've been on a show with previously. And but yeah, I don't keep up with a lot of the current media right now, so I might be a little rough on the edges with some of the stuff we'll
No
talk
problem.
about. But yeah, we have a lot of things going on with this country right now. I can't even begin to talk about everything. But some of the things I do want to cover today are your work in the field, obviously, your your knowledge on these different drones that have been going on, like been flying around recently, and how long they've been going on for, and yeah, just more of your experiences out in the field, because yeah, I just find it fascinating.
Yeah. A lot of people don't get the background. I've actually been on some other shows we won't mention, and one recently where I was actually being told or almost berated as a co-host. Oh, we don't need to hear your background again. Yeah, you do, because if you don't know the background, you can't put a context with what I'm about to tell them. Is like assuming they have the same five or six listeners all the time, Joe. So
Yeah,
if you got one new person in there, they need to know the background, which qualifies me as an expert in a lot of areas. And still, when you tell people you're former Secret Service and I'm a whistleblower, some people have actually posted on other sites and so forth. Oh, you can't be a whistleblower if you're Secret Service, or you wouldn't tell us or something. Joke, right? And I said, no, come on, wake up, wake up. So right now they're doing special ceremonies for Jimmy Carter, who I actually protected in 76, 77, right around the time that Ford was there. And I came into the Secret Service in 74, right after Nixon left, August 9th, 74. and I come from a military family, top secret military bases, then, see how that blends in with all these other things because people don't get that. If you're not military and you don't know top secret stuff, then you're going to have to brush up on your stuff because it does tie in. But um, anyway, I was Foreign Missions Division. I protected the embassies like the Russian embassy, 1 block away from the White House, actually 1.5 blocks if you want to walk it, that kind of a measurement. And that's been since moved. And that was right after Nixon left. And I'll throw this out there because a lot of people don't get it. And I say, hey, where do you think Nixon left when he left the White House on Marine One? And they'd say, oh, he went to San Clemente, back to the Western White House, or Key Biscayne, or some other place. I said, no, he went up north to New York to go visit a friend by the name of Donald J. Trump. Put that together. Wrap your head around that one, as they say, because a lot of people just don't get it. You can Google it under images and put Nixon Trump, and you'll see pictures with him and all. They've been grooming Trump for many, many years.
I was about to say that or ask about that.
Exactly. Rona Barrett of Hollywood stuff. When he had dark hair, and he was like, in his 30s or something, and then later it was Oprah Winfrey, the
That's
trafficker.
where, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I've found people that actually were connected. That's another interesting story. But when I tell you these things, and I tell people out there that this stuff is real, and I've exposed and come in contact with hard evidence, a lot of people they don't get it. So I'm a special source. That's why I get all the death threats. That's why I don't get retirement. That's why I don't get Social Security. And U.S. Customs retaliated, and there's 15 years missing, and then they'll lie to you right to your face. Oh, but you don't have the credits to retire, Mr. No, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. In fact, I think right after the selection of the first, the Speaker of the House, back to Johnson again, thank God, is Kareem Jeffries, who was quoting something out of the Bible. And I said, I thought that guy was a Muslim. He could quote whatever, but
Yeah, he
there's
talks
always a
very similar. He has
yeah.
similar speech cadence to Obama too.
Well,
So,
there's a double meaning. Anytime they want to quote something, there's always a double meaning to it, and I'm always listening to it. It's like a double-edged blade or sword. They might press it in one way, but they'll twist it and cut you in another. But there was a special point about that. And I was trying to think because Trump is still under security risk. They've lied so much about it, and people in the Congress have lied. So you have to realize they may have elected this guy or appointed him. They got around to it and got that taken care of. He got 218 votes. That's good. And then he swore them all back in. If it was me, I'd say, I'm going to swear everybody in except all you guys and name a whole list of them and not do it. He didn't do that, did he? So it's kind of like he has to certify the election. So he's probably going to certify that Trump won. There's always some level that they're chopping and steps that you have to go through before the final thing because they can always throw a wrench into the monkey work thing.
mhm.
That's not good. So um, when they talked about crooks, that's it. Nope, they're lying. Those people, even in the Secret Service, God bless some of them, uh, even Dan Bongino lied before Congress saying that the guy's name was Crooks. He either doesn't know what the F he's talking about, or Dan needs to go back and look in the mirror again. And I've only talked to him on email once or twice, a couple of times, something like that. The guy's playing. So I don't see him being tapped, but you never know. I'm waiting for a phone call right now. Yeah, yeah, 24/7. Nobody's called yet. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Um,
Yeah, and
there's
Bongino is also ex-service as well, right?
Yeah, and we used to joke about it, saying, "Yeah, there's a picture of him opening the door to the beast for Obama." And you can imagine the talk in the ready room afterwards. Hey, Dan, you opened up the door really good today, and he'll probably, flip him off or say thanks a lot because it's a sarcasm. But as long as you each do your jobs, I did my job very, very well in Secret Service and other agencies. That's why they don't like me. They don't like somebody who's a perfectionist, martial arts and all that, because I did get things done properly, and then they failed to follow up and do their jobs. So that's why Democrats get into certain positions. They're not qualified. And I'll tell you about females, we token promotions and you name it. They didn't get in there um, because of the knowledge and the expertise. It's because of something else that they did behind the scenes. And we've actually caught people in the act of doing something for promotions, and that does exist. They don't want people to know that stuff, behind closed doors, kind of like that last speaker where they couldn't come up with the vote and they're giving stuff back and forth. They're exchanging something of value. And I'll tell all the people out there, if you're a registered whatever, it doesn't matter what you're registered, they sell out your intel and information on you if you try to get help from a congressman. Like me submitting the military detention disposal list on a PDF file. Not one of those people responded, and I'm not getting protection. Daryl Issa, to name one, Republican, member of the WEF, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Josh Hawley, all of them, you name it, all of them, if they don't respond. And then I would even try to contact some of the Democrats just to prove a point, give them a fair chance to respond. Nope. I've had calls that come back, but what they do is they only want to know your name, your email, and your phone number so they can block you, block you, and block you in some way. So that means if I reach out, and I get tired of hearing people thinking they know stuff. These are the amateurs out there. Oh, John, you should call your congressman. Really? Do you realize I protected the president of the United States? You have to throw it at them. You do. They don't understand that. Do you realize I almost kicked out the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, at the White House because he didn't answer my question right? Stuff like that. I almost arrested Barbara Walters because they lied to try and get in a limo. They didn't get in. And I've arrested people at gunpoint at the White House at 2 in the morning. That guy didn't have an appointment either. You got to hear the sarcasm, right? So a lot of people have a lot of ignorance about how things work. They watch too much TV, or well, if you want to do that, then go watch White House Down with Gerard Butler. Watch all 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, or whatever, and get a basic idea. The Sentinel with Michael Douglas, that was another semi good one because they disclosed information in these movies through Hollywood, which is what they do about passwords.
Yep.
If an agent goes to work and they're trying to save the first lady and they're whisking her off in the president a different direction, and all the other dignitaries a certain way, and they get into another mutual area where there's a combat situation, and if this one agent didn't know the code word for the day and he's supposed to, they shoot him. It's real simple. It's very, very black and white in our world. Everybody else doesn't get that, you know. We shoot to stop. We don't shoot to do that other word. We can't use that other word. You
And
mean
whatever
you don't
clout
have
that
the
they think they
license to
have.
what? Yeah, we don't have that. No, we're not supposed to use that. So it's like an insider 007 joke. So
Yeah, well,
it's
like you were
great.
saying with Barbara Walters, they think they could use their clout in the industry to have free passes into
Oh yeah.
secured places where you're guarding it.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It was funny because I happened to be at the Southwest Gate, and I'll recount the incident a little bit. And a black limousine pulls up. I'm on the radio right away. Do we have traffic at the certain location? Blah blah blah. No, what's going on? We got a black limousine showed up, and there's no escort. There's no whatever. Blah blah blah. So I go out there, and I have access to a phone. I got a radio on me, and I go out, and the driver steps out. Hispanic guy with a chauffeur's cap, the usual dress. He says, "Hey, I got Miss Walters, and she's got an appointment with the first lady or something to that effect." I said, really, stand by. And I'm transmitting to verify. By that point, I'm going to go contact who is in the back seat with my gun, of course. I'm always armed. So I open up the back door. There's Miss Walters, and she didn't look very pleasant or nice or friendly or smile or any of that. So I said, well, Miss Walters, I understand you or you're claiming that you have an appointment. We're verifying it right now. Do you have your ID with you? I need something with a picture ID, your driver's license, or your work ID, or something with a name, date of birth, etc. No. She says no and shakes her head. She wasn't very nice. I'm measuring that. Do you understand? These people have no idea. I worked at the border for 15 years and I'm looking at behavioral analysis responses. And if I think she's um, psycho or crazy that day, I wouldn't let her in anyway. I wouldn't. It's on me. It's a well, you know what? She doesn't look too good. I'm gonna have her park somewhere else and walk or sit there for a while or something else outside the complex. And you don't know what's in the vehicle either. You don't know that she's being targeted, that they've got a nuke inside the vehicle, biological weapon explosion. Nobody knows that. I knew that stuff back then in the 70s.
Did they have access back then to like those rubber or latex masks that they would try to pretend to be other people?
Oh, yeah, I'll debunk that right now. Um, I've had people that are flat earthers that swear up and down, oh, that's a clone. Prove it. They can't. You show me a face. Now I could see you and you've got a background, and up to a point, based on the textures and the skin and your responses of your face are perfectly normal. That won't show up on a mask. And I've seen people with masks. Then they've got scarves that look like a woman's underhose, lederhosen or whatever, and it'll have a face spray painted on it perfectly. And if they put it on, it's nice and tight, a single face. If you put a hood and you get a glimpse, you might think that you're that guy Luigi Mangione or whatever, the guy that just assassinated the CEO from one of the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
So even a camera can't discern that
Yeah, I
unless
would say, yeah.
it gets the digital stuff. But normally 9 times out of 10. And excuse me, I processed so many people at the border for 15 years in the millions. I already did the estimates, 4 to 5 million, give or take. That means I'm up close and personal. And if I can touch it and sense it and all that. Now, they've had people try it in a prison and they stupidly had a female or a guy dress up as a female with one of those latex things, a body type thing. It goes under the clothing, with a wig and the makeup and all that. And at some point in time, you still can tell by human discernment that I have to examine these people. So I get tired after a while of explaining these people are idiots. They just think that it's Halloween all the time.
Yeah, I'm
You get
glad
it.
you're explaining this though, because
Yeah,
it does make sense that like when you're in close proximity with another person, you're gonna tell.
exactly.
And like with the
Even if it
scars
was
and all that.
Halloween and you've got spray paint and makeup and stuff, and you see the reactions and the inflections and the muscular stuff and other things, then you could tell that's probably a human, probably, that word. There's another interesting buzzword. But if I had seen one that wasn't human, you can bet I would have had a gun out or cuffed it up if it was a evil type. If it was angelic, it would be another type of a category or some other deal. Or a hologram. Let's throw a hologram thing in. Holograms are different. We had a guy that was at the White House on a midnight shift, not me, and he saw something that was so viable he shot at it. I don't think it was solid enough, but it was enough of a hologram look. It could have been an apparition, a ghost, or something. So he shot anyway, just to make sure that, oh my God, there's an intruder, or maybe yelled at it and it didn't respond. So yeah, Lincoln's ghost, maybe, who knows? But I've pulled my gun on real things out there, but you can imagine that other stuff does exist in the realm. Interdimensional, tall whites. Howard Hughes used to show up with meetings with a guy named President Eisenhower, like at Edwards Air Force Base with two saucers. And believe me, there was another guy that got that evidence information. That was the vice president to Eisenhower. So that was back in 53. I always quote 51 because 51 was the day the earth stood still movie. but we had Roswell in 47. And I've talked to Philip J. Corso, the colonel, people like that. I knew Art Bell personally since 95. I was on injury leave from customs. So I had time to do shows, contact people, do intel collection, and talk to others and really get stuff collected. I've been doing stuff since I was a kid, but there's certain subjects you don't tell people about, like UFOs, aliens. You just don't tell them. You could go get the magazine. You might know one person that you can exchange information and talk about it, but after that, you don't tell people about it because uh, they don't have the ability to comprehend or to process the information a certain way.
You were saying that the Day the Earth Stood Still movie was in 51,
1951,
but the Eisenhower stuff happened in 53.
right? And I believe it would be
Okay.
Truman right before that, and that's okay. No big deal. And when I was on midnight ship at the White House, and the weather's nice, and it was all dark out, I said, "Hey, if it's going to happen, do it now. I'm out here. Do it now. Land. Go ahead, try it." But on the movie, the ship was so big, it was on the south of the ellipse below towards the Washington Monument. I've been in the Washington Monument all the way to the top, and they were going to shut it down because a presidential movement was going to happen. And they have to shut it down every time Marine One comes in. I said, Secret Service. Oh, okay, never mind. You guys stay. No problem. So I got to watch that from another angle, how the procedures were going. But yeah, that thing was huge. That was at least a whole enough to cover a baseball field, easy. You know, 300 feet on a football field, stuff like that. You can't quite fit that in on the south lawn of the White House. It would be a little bit of a tilt because the White House, anytime you see these fake White Houses, they have flat ground. And I said, no, if you jump the fence, you're going to have to go up on either side. It's a slight incline. So if you go the front fence area, Pennsylvania Avenue, you're going to have to jump over the fence and run uphill to get around to the front north portico. A little bit different on the south side, but they've
And
got
that's a
enough.
good deterrent too.
Oh yeah, and that goes back to the Civil War, by the way. Civil War was encamped at the White House, protecting the White House and the president, and they've had shootings and all kinds of weird stuff that's happened even when I was there. So there's a lot of history behind that area. Very sacred to people in the United States if they really thought about all those activities. They could fit two Black Hawk helicopters, Marine one size easily in the south side to do an evacuation. Easy. They could keep them coming too. Land, rescue, take off, land, rescue, take off, and that's what they're prepared to do. Besides all the usual tunnel BS that you usually hear. Uh,
Yeah.
Sorry,
I
folks,
was
they
going to
aren't
ask about
rescuing.
that too.
Yeah, they aren't rescuing children, period, anywhere near the security clearance at the White House. And I've been in the tunnels. And I've been in certain tunnels where you just go under, hey, I got to go qualify. It's midnight. So I better go qualify, get it out of the way, go next door to the Treasury Building off 15th Street. And then when I come out, I'll come out on top side and then I'll go to my car and drive home to go to sleep. So I get so tired of the same recycled BS out there. But and sometimes it's kind of like punching holes in people's little stories, their lives or whatever. They want to believe something weird. Well, you'd have to have top secret clearance to be in those areas. Why would anybody rescue children and then bring them to that area just to pull them out of the White House to walk out? I mean, is there a is there a Stargate over there somewhere that they're transporting through, or and it reminds me of that guy that was under Eisenhower, which was Nixon, by the way, and he had a guy named Robert Merritt who used to be brought in because he was an intel undercover, and somebody else on another show, I won't mention the other show, not the one we're talking about probably, but another other show. That guy's a little flaky, but his information was that an agent would pick up some guy who was working and passing on intel to the Washington D.C. intel units, which is viable, and then he got a ride to the White House. Well, technically they're not going to let him go into the White House. They're going to let him go next door to an EOB office, Executive Office Building, aka War Department, aka Eisenhower Building, back in the day. And then go meet with Nixon without the agent. And then Nixon actually gave this guy a document, folded up, put it in an envelope, and taped it to the inside of his shirt so that nobody would see. Even the agent didn't know what he had, and it was a special document. And then the agent had to drop him off. The one name that was mentioned was Kissinger. Kissinger was up in Northwest D.C., up near another military attache that I used to protect for the Russian embassy. And it's right around the corner from the largest Islamic temple up in that area off Kalorama Road and Belmont, which is where Obama has a place, with Michelle. I use the term loosely. Michelle's Michelle,
Yeah.
Michael. But and then that guy, and then there was a third person who was supposed to drop it off, but it tapers off because they didn't mention a name. The document was supposed to be released through President Trump in 2020. He did not do it. I don't know why. It had something to do with alien presence, which is so far never going to be released unless you talk to Stephen Greer. I've talked to Stephen Greer before, and I was at Contact in the Desert in 2017. Um, I got a special invite. They paid my way, so I didn't have to pay any money, and I still drove up there though. And I met with a bunch of other people, Clyde Lewis. I saw Laura Eisenhower, but I barely caught her. I couldn't catch her. She was running off to do something else.
Yeah, she's the granddaughter or
She is the actual great or
great
granddaughter of
granddaughter. Yeah.
Eisenhower uh, back in the 50s. So she'd be my age. So yeah, granddaughter, something like that.
Yeah, I've watched a, a lot of interviews that she's done.
Oh, she's hyper. She's hyper. I tried to contact her through another show that we're familiar with, and it was promised that, oh yeah, yeah, I'll contact him. She wanted to talk to me, and it never happened. That's happened before, by the way. And I go, well, I'll just chalk it up to something else. But you can still listen to her. She's got a lot of information, a lot of stuff about the projects are outside the planet. The Valiant Thor character, who actually did get brought to the area and landed near the Pentagon, as the story goes, and they kept him in a suite, unquote, for like 3 years. And they would take Secret Service would take him underground or otherwise to visit with Eisenhower for a period of time, and that means Eisenhower and Nixon, because Nixon was a vice president, and the vice presidents handle intel. That's a big deal, unless something else happens. So it's like when Nixon was meeting in the desert with somebody like Jackie Gleason, he would take him to another place, maybe in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, to show him the bodies of the aliens that crashed in Roswell. But there were two discs, not just one. And, yeah, small bodies, grays, whatever, they're not the same. They're not functional the way humans are. They're not functional the way we think they are. They're drones. They're totally like soldiers. They're totally different. Then you get into the higher categories, up to the whites, the Anunnaki, the giants, and all these other categories. So,
When you say they're drones, are
um,
they artificially made?
yes, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, because I had
anything,
heard about that too.
yeah, anything in a petri dish that can artificially grow you. I think there was a movie called V where they came down acting like they're going to take us away and save us, and a lot of these young people that they wanted, of course, oh, you're perfect for our thing. You should be one of our young ambassadors from the planet, and you can wear a special uniform and everything. And they'll take these people thinking they're going to go to another planet or star system to be an ambassador from the United States or the world. And these ships were so big, they were bigger than Manhattan. I mean, they were that big.
Yeah.
District 9 would be a movie to watch. That's another one that shows these gigantic, humongous, ginormous, there's a good word, how big they are. Um, But by the time they get up to the ship, um, I think I saw part of the movie where they were actually showing them. And then after a while, they would disappear. And then all of a sudden, they're going through a storage area. The captains of the ship are talking male and female, and they're all reptilian related, reptilian stuff. And they're looking at these gigantic tubes, and they contain humans in them, in a liquid of some sort to keep them preserved in their travel. Sometimes they could put two or three to a tube, or they could condense the matter down to whatever, so they can get the adrenochromes and all the other things that they're doing. Because
So like a giant refrigerator for them.
yeah, and it's almost like a vampire thing. It gets into that. In fact, if you look at the patterns, they're encouraging the history of the vampire stuff. And I just saw one the other day where they were looking at the genomes or the DNA and stuff. And this guy said, "Yeah, it looks like stage two, whatever, blah, 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 blah." The guy said, "Yeah, that's from my blood." And some guy stepped out and he says he's a vampire. So that stuff does exist at an alien level, just like it did back when Bela Lugosi was doing stuff in the movies in the 30s and 40s. Uh, you
Yeah,
couldn't you couldn't even have a comic book in South America because they're Catholic or religious about any of that stuff. And stuff still occurs today. I've been to Chichen Itza in Mexico. They sacrifice thousands or maybe even up to millions in a day on the vernal equinox to cut out the heart, take the blood, take the beating heart, and all these other things to Quetzalcoatl. And that stuff ties in as well. So sacrifice, the Khazarian Jews, even the stories about people under the Vatican stuff is ongoing. That really kind of irritates me too. So some
yeah,
of the
there's a huge operation going on in the Vatican. Like I've heard so many stories about what is really going on, and
exactly.
also like the tunnels over there too.
Oh,
Because
that's definite. Most places do have tunnels already. We have tunnels that go from the East Coast to the West Coast. If somebody had to get into a high-speed monorail like at Disneyland, they can do it. They can go from one end to the other. I've ridden on the bullet train in Japan in 1970 when I was at the World's Fair, 200 miles per hour to go to Osaka from the Tokyo area in less than a couple hours. And
oh,
that's with one or two stops. It's all real. Technology's there, but I didn't see any med beds this week yet either, and
no,
they could do it. They can rearrange your cells. They can scan you like on a CT scan from head to toe and rearrange and retune all of your bodily cells to the point where if you had something, it's gone now. So that like a tune-up. Frequencies. I studied that stuff too.
oh yeah, I really all of the yeah the sound frequencies to help the body heal and everything. So, do you know anything about the bells being removed from all of these churches and towers and anything?
I've heard about that. Yeah. The bells, if you look at the history of it, they were made by certain people religiously. Would be like me telling you the story about Frank Zappa, where he tuned all of his instruments to the perfect frequencies. And if you're satanic or whatever, they go off frequency by a couple of hertz. So if you have 432, 417, Tesla 369,
Yeah,
then those are healing frequencies. But if you listen to music, which is trash music, then your ears, your brain, and your body are going to hear trash. So trash going in, trash coming out. That kind of a philosophy.
yeah.
The bells, as I understood it, they had to be perfect and they had to be perfectly in tune. I only recently came across something where they were doing all this stuff about certain bells. So the bells at Notre Dame, the bells at the church, bells at any Spanish mission had to be perfectly made to a certain frequency. And if it didn't match up properly, then they wouldn't use it. In fact, I can hear a certain, like in an old movie that I used to watch, clang, 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 and it would be a certain tone. So you would
Mhm.
recognize it. Um, Higher notes are different. In fact, I had some tuning forks that somebody sent me recently, um, which is really why I sort of was looking into it. There's a guy named Jonathan something or other. I can't think of his last name, but that's kind of stuff that they would get into.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you got the whole set there.
Yeah, that's only a 7 piece deal. I'll give you an example of one. You put it near the ear, but you don't touch it. You don't touch it. You get it near so you can hear it. And some people might even get to the point where you might touch it to your a body part, and then you just stick it like on your elbow because you got some problem with your elbow or something. But you can hear how loud that is. But if you heard the tone, I don't know if the speaker would pick up on it or not.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it right now.
But
But I know they're all at different ranges, so the microphone
exactly.
probably
But
won't
if
get
you
it.
had the exact perfect ones with the ones that would heal, shoot, all you have to do. They showed a one with a bowl. So you got a Buddhist ringing bowl, singing bowl, and the father, Chinese, the baby was like in a nightmare or was whining. And they took a bowl and they tapped it and rotated it, and he would just immediately calm down immediately. And he even made an ah sound. A baby. A baby would do it. Like, oh, because it relaxed him immediately. So sometimes if you get disrupted with the wrong noises continually, like if you live in the city where I'm semi living in certain areas and they have uh, uh, trash trucks, sirens, all kinds of continuous construction noise and all that stuff, it's trash to your brain. And sometimes you have to shut down. If you use headsets, you can listen to certain frequencies and it will help you to calm down and it will adjust. And binaural beats, 10 hours worth of bees making the same tone. That, believe it or not, if you worked around bees, you live longer than most people because the frequency, maybe it's the honey, maybe it's the pollen, I don't know, but it's all tied in. I study everything I can get my hands on. Martial arts is like that. Study everything, but be an expert at one technique, but study everything. It's almost like a Bruce Lee thing, Don't
Yeah.
limit yourself. Be like water, my friend, right? That's another famous saying he was always dissertation on.
Wow.
But think about it. If they use the frequencies and they do, you know what directed energy weapons were or are. That's what the Chinese balloon was all about. They were scanning over the whole United States and, you know, the son of a bitch didn't do anything about it. Then they waited till it went 3,000 miles and said, oh, we'll shoot it and it'll land over water and then we'll recover it and find out what they already transmitted. They already transmitted what they wanted. Then you got Lahaina. That was a CCP satellite that scanned up through
I
the
saw those
right,
overheads what you're talking about.
right. So that means that they did same thing in North Carolina, Asheville. And me and a friend of mine were just talking about. We were trying to help somebody because they needed some medication. We were telling them, go get some ivermectin, to mail it, and blah blah blah. 3 days minimum average before the actual attack. And they still haven't helped those people, but they're sending trillions of dollars to an ATM called the Ukraine in another country. Oh, look over there. There's another disturbance. Oh, there's a war over there. There's an earthquake. There's something else, some destructive thing. More rail car incidents in the whole United States ever in this last administration.
Yeah.
Ever. Think about it. Rail car incidents, Ukrainian pilots on a ship that runs into the Key, Sir Francis Scott Key Bridge in Maryland. What a bunch of
What
BS.
yeah, and then it shut down that whole port. Like
Yeah, and
what
it's going to be millions and millions of dollars to fix it. Where do you think that's going? To certain contractors that they pick out, and they're going to do a kickback to their big guy 10% to the big guy thing. I mean, get me started. I mean, I can tell you a lot of stuff that they're doing.
Is that mostly what they've been doing all of this like destruction of the infrastructure for is just
Exactly.
kickbacks just to get a
Exactly.
little money? Damn.
Tear it down, build it back better because they're not experts at what they do. They won't even enforce the laws that they have on the books. They'll do something else, like letting all these people in. But the thing about the structure of the infrastructures is they'll tear it down and claim credit so they can come back and see, oh, see, we fixed that. Who tore it down in the first place? They did. That's how they work. They're satanic. So it's like they have to tell us what they're doing before they do it to give us a chance to do something or fix it. But the problem is people are tax slaves out there. That's all they are. That's it. There's
Yeah.
people in the street. There's people that are homeless. I see them every day. And I'm almost homeless. That's another critical thing. And yet these people don't get it, and they just go to work, pay their money. If I had a good job, I would probably pay taxes just to avoid the hassle because there's not enough of them to fix the problem. But when they let these people get into power like this, it will tear down a country. They're trying to make us into a third world country, and it's like a Trojan horse. It's exactly a Trojan horse. So
Yeah.
these people are bringing in all these people from other countries. I won't say Haitian too loud because there's Haitians in the building. Uh, they don't speak hardly any English. They speak Spanish because they stayed in Mexico before they came up. One guy admitted he came from Venezuela first. I said, "Oh, that's a long swim from Haiti, don't you think?" You know. And by the way, when they had the hurricanes and the destruction of Haiti back during the Clinton administration, where'd
Mhm.
all that money go to? To their offshore bank account somewhere, Swiss bank account, Cayman Islands, whatever. So these people are so vicious. If I was back in Secret Service or special consultant to Trump right now, I would tell him you need to cut these people off and you need to put some serious people in jail, in prison. Send them to Gitmo, give them their waterboarding sports, and Diego Garcia and a couple other places. Put John Caracal in charge of that because he used to do like interrogation stuff. Um, these people don't get it, and yet it's a 2, 3 tier justice system. There is none. So eventually, people figure it out, and then it's too late. I'll be lucky to be around for I don't know how many years, maybe, unless they off me, because I've had death threats and all that. They don't want me talking about it, so this is a very special interview. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm so thankful to have you on here because also I I'm aware of gatekeepers that really it seems like they're just trying to run people's time out and stop them from accomplishing getting the truth out to people.
that's a good point that you just touched on because it reminds me of the fact that I earned my living 20 plus years. If you were at customs, you could go 30 years. And these guys are killing themselves, sucking up fumes at the largest land border port in San Diego, at San Ysidro, at Tijuana. And you are killing yourself because you're sucking up fumes from toxic cars, carbon monoxide, dioxide. And if you lasted so long, I finally got a reaction to it and I got too much in my system. So I had to take a break, 6 to 8, 9 months. Even then, you still have relapse responses, photosynthesis, sensitivity to light, stuff like that. And I had blood tests to prove it. But those people eventually had heart attacks. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, don't do drugs. I'm a healthy guy, and I used to run 5, 6 miles a day, martial arts, bike riding, 10 miles a day, stuff like that. And I still had a blocked vein, anterior vein.
Well, yeah, so you can just imagine what these other people who aren't as active
Oh,
like went
they
through.
would
It's a
die.
lot faster. Yeah.
They would die. I've seen people that were really bad people, smoke, drank, whatever. The day before they retired, one died, heart attack. Another guy died the day of or the day after his retirement, died. Within 5 years, they were expected to have a heart attack and or die. So unless they took care of themselves, They couldn't do it. They were so far back on their health. I've got serious injuries. I've been crashed into by cars by a female texting or something. So I've got a serious back thing, but I can't go out running like I used to. So if I had an adjustment or a med bed or something like that, then oh yeah, I could probably do other exercise. I mean, I do martial arts, but up close and personal, I can still defend myself. But um, and I'll tell people get ivermectin. You know, I know how to get the ivermectin ordered out of India, 1,000 pills for like 75 bucks. In the United States, if you got 100 pills to a box, 100 pills to a small box, let me show you a sample box here. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. A small box, 100 pills. They would charge you $200 plus another $100 for the doctor. They would charge you like $300 for half of those
Wow.
or
It's like the
less.
same thing they're doing with insulin.
Exactly. It's a scam. So um, I walk around these guys all the time. I take supplements all the time, and that's what you should do. Natural food, real supplements. If Billy Gates had orange juice, he changes one molecule to it and gets a copyright trademark on it, makes millions of dollars, and calls it orange juice when it isn't. Watermelon without the seeds, that's altered. So what they're doing
Yep.
is they're trying to get food. And recently they were talking about sushi. And I said, no, if they change the molecule, that means you are what you eat. You will damage your body. It'll change the structure of how it works. So you have to eat real food, real meat, real whatever, because it's sunlight converted to the energy that you absorb in your body unless you're not human. Then if you're not human, then you may ingest other types of foods or algae or fungus or some other or mold. I mean, yeah, look at blue cheese, that's mold, right?
Yeah.
She could get some yogurt, and that's another stuff. They had streptococcus in some weird yogurt from Switzerland or someplace. And I'm reading the bacterial stuff. Oh yeah, it's got streptococcus in there. Wait a minute. Isn't that what you get in your throat? Why would you eat that? So yeah, maybe in small portions. I don't know. So
Just a quick refresher for the audience here.
yeah,
What are you taking ivermectin for?
anything I want.
So you're using it as a cure-all, basically.
That's right.
Awesome.
Now, I tested it. I did the horse pace before that. What's his name? Joe Rogan and Alex, what's his name?
Yeah.
No, I'm being facetious about that. But I took that stuff, tested it, and I tested it before. If you got a headache, you got internal stuff going on, anything, take it. I know a person that's got MS and they're sitting in a wheelchair somewhere or in a bed and they still haven't taken it, but they didn't take the shot, supposedly. I never took the shot. I don't need to take a shot. If I took the shot, I don't know if this would work, but I still take it. So every now and then, and I got 2 pills on this tray, I'll let it go for a while and say, yeah, I'm feeling off a little bit. And then you take it and you're okay. 2 or 3 pills. Some people do it in 3 pill segments, 12 milligrams each. I'm not a doctor. There's my disclaimer, but I'm highly trained. I was cross designated FDA as well. US Customs were 40 different agencies, every one of them, all of them. Department of Defense, Immigration, Fish and Wildlife, FDA, you name it. So,
It's
uh,
too many agencies. This
yeah,
government's gotten so out of control, like
well,
it's
exactly. But
massive size.
but we handled all the stuff that came through the border. So basically, if anything that comes into contact with the human body, like these eye drops, they had to be approved by FDA. A nasal cannula, eye drops, an IV, anything. If it has to be approved. And it also takes up to 10 years for medications to be approved. So anytime they say that they had the shot for the COVID approved within 60 days or something, they're lying. They already had it and then they're playing a game. So they lie about it. Members of Congress had ivermectin. They didn't take the shot. And I've heard certain people, I won't mention certain names because, So what? Congressmen, congresswomen had money invested in these pharmaceutical companies, J&J, AstraZeneca, Moderna, etc. There's like five major ones. So some people were actually applauding that guy, Luigi Mangione, for assassinating this guy because he had a bad back. I've got a bad back, but I don't have pins in it. And maybe he's in constant pain. He just went over the edge. Well, that's a viable defense. Temporary insanity. And I'm the guy that interviewed Hinckley in front of the White House. So if Hinckley can get in a mental hospital for 40 years and he gets out after 40 years, G. Gordon Liddy, I ran into him and met him in San Diego. He died the same day that Hinckley got out of prison several years ago.
And who's that?
G. Gordon Liddy, G-Man, Watergate. G. Gordon Liddy was an FBI agent. He was under the Nixon administration. Frank Sturgis is one character I like to investigate because I've got contacts with people that used to be at Bay of Pigs and goes all the way back to Poppy Bush, 1961, and stuff like that. But it's just really weird and interesting how some people you come in contact with, maybe I shook hands with them and something happens that that person is connected in some way to some other people that you've met or some major occurrence. Um, yeah, Hinckley's still around. I interviewed him from the White House in '76 when Ford was in office, and he was talking about microwaves in his head, sexually related terms, and Jodie Foster. That's the top three things. He probably saw the movie Taxi Driver. So,
Why Jodie Foster why did
well,
he
Jodie
bring her?
Foster was in the movie at
Okay.
at an ungodly 14, 15, maybe 16 years of age. Um, and Hinckley could not separate truth from fiction because some of these people are mentally off. And if you want to get into the MK Ultra stuff, they could walk into a movie and they associate themselves and attach themselves to a character so that when they walk out, they can't separate it. So
Hmm.
if you go see a Spider-Man movie and you really love Spider-Man and you walk out of there and you think, oh, cool, I want to be like Spider-Man. That's what kids do. It's normal. It's okay. But then after a while, you kind of have to separate it off, like Superman. You can't jump up and fly off the building, you know.
Yeah. You should be able to walk out, go home, and analyze the film, be like, it was a good story. I understand this and this.
Oh yeah.
I was in I was involved in the film like industry for a while.
Okay.
I still am, but like not in the capacity I was. Very independent. But yeah, I know that whole attachment thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's some people that I know that to this day I mean they're trying to even I don't know if I should even say this, but they're seeing themselves in every movie that's coming
Yeah.
out
They want
now.
to emulate that character so much. I mean, I like certain characters, and that's okay. Truth, justice, and the American way. That's all right. But some other people, they have to separate. But then on top of all that, with all the other knowledge, I've got to say, wait a minute. What makes you think you can't go through interdimensional through a wall or stone? It's because our DNA was altered. If you're human, it was altered. I know the research on Howard Hughes, which I've got a picture of him over here with Amelia Earhart, and there's a lot of top secret stuff I've been evaluating. Howard Hughes used to have a friend up in Big Rock north of Joshua Tree, where I met with these other people on the contact in the desert thing. And George Van Tassel had an air base and a restaurant down there. So if you wanted to land your airplane, like Howard Hughes used to do, he would land on some trip. It's near the desert. It's not too far from Area 51, Reno, Vegas, and all these other places. Places I've lived at, China Lake, top secret military base, Edwards Air Force Base, been to Andrews, stuff like that. But he would go out there because he claimed that, oh, he loves this guy's wife's hamburgers because they had a small airport with a restaurant. But Van Tassel actually had contact with tall whites, and they could snap their fingers and go invisible and then snap them back and they're there, you know. So if they have the ability to do that, then your frequency has to be brought up to a certain level. It's like saying, yeah, you have to sit around and go Om and get into the Buddhist intonations and stuff and raise your frequencies so you can do these magical things. I believe that's true because the Tibetan monks used to raise gigantic stones with frequencies. And if you know the frequency of this token here, you can make it float. Well, better still, I'll use the Millennium Falcon here. If you know the frequency of this little Millennium Falcon, you can float it just like somebody that I talked to, who's a DARPA guy that I have a contact with. A gigantic beetle cannot fly on those wings. It's an intonation frequency that it will float because of the frequency.
Hmm.
And I've seen it. I've seen them take with special super magnets. They'll put it on a plate of copper, and they'll use it and float it and position it and do all kinds of stuff because they know how to do it.
I really believe that that is what was used to create Coral Castle in Florida.
Oh yeah, yeah. The famous the Coral Castle guy down in Florida, my Sweet 16 comment, because he built that stuff, and every time he floated these things or gravitated them, he closed off the area so nobody could see what it was.
Hmm.
And it's amazing. I can't think of the guy's name right now, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I've researched it too. So,
I have his name here.
hey, wasn't
Ed,
the guy also
Ed, it was Ed Lead Skalman.
wasn't he also from a place called Hungary? Maybe a new Tesla or something?
He might have.
Yeah,
That's a really good point to bring up. Because like
yeah.
I've visited Coral Castle. This is from the gift store there. In fact,
Well,
they've
it's
turned it
still.
into an amusement facility of sorts now, but
I actually got a toy, which was a box that had it was a plastic box, and you put a plastic plate on it. So I guess it had some sort of a reverse metal or magnet, and you took a little spinning top, and you had to put a certain amount of weights to it to make it bounce just right. And all you had to do is put a plastic sheet on top of the black box, spin the top, raise it up about an inch or two, and then pull away the plastic, and it would still be spinning above that box. That is the coolest example of the power that we have and access to, but they don't want us to have that because we would circumvent, drill, baby, drill, oil, coal, all this other stuff. We don't need to. Why are we paying for water? Stuff like that. They don't want us
exactly.
to have it. We're tax slaves again. Back to that. But yeah, the technology's there. People have built saucers, interdimensional time machines. You're talking Stargates and Operation Looking Glass and all those things. Supposedly there was 12 of them on the planet. And I look at those Facebook reels and I evaluate some of that, which is really interesting stuff. Because the pyramids, and I've been to Chichen Itza in Merida in Mexico in 91. And I ran up and down the pyramid like 3 times. The steps were half the size of my foot because the Aztec or Mayan Indians were short and all that. So, but you still had to be careful. So it's like probably 365 steps up, 365 down, up and down 3 times. Just say I did it. And they used to sacrifice so many people. All those steps probably still have DNA and blood somewhere inside of them, somewhere,
Oh yeah, yeah. With the
right?
amount of people, yeah,
In a
it's
day.
embedded in there.
And the females, if they were picked, were designated, if it was a virgin female or something, they would take them over to what they call a cenote or cenote. And that's over in an open area, and down below this opening in the ground, like coral and stuff, because all that area is coral. All of
Hmm.
Mexico is like it used to be underwater. Mexico City is under like based on a lake and stuff like that. But they would take these females and put all this gold on them and make them walk off a plank and drop into the water, and they didn't teach them how to swim, I guess. So that's where some archaeologists would go and find all these little trinkets down there,
Oh, wow.
artifacts. I studied that stuff too. I got an archaeology background. I used to see stuff at the border when I was at Customs. So, yeah, I'm everything. If you got this, I'm going to get something else. If you got that, I get something. I'll find something that. If it's not worth it, I'm just not even going to worry about it. I'm looking for the big bad guys, stuff like that. And I did that too. So I made the highest level arrests, drug seizures every day out of the week and the monthly reports. My name showed up all the time. Eventually, you'd think they're going to recognize it, and they did, but I didn't get promoted. I
What
think
time frame were you there in
oh,
Mexico?
83 to 98. Secret Service till 77 after Carter was there. Um, San Diego PD for about 3 years, then a private investigator for about a year. Got reinstated back to Treasury to the U.S. Mint, only to be reinstated and transferred to Customs, which is where I wanted to go because you had ultimate authority, but you had much a wider range of enforcement authorities, and you worked at the border. So I said, no, I want to go back and work in the Southwest region, San Diego district, and that's what I did. But I ended up being assigned to Calexico because I had undercover work background. I had a Secret Service background. So I was being used, and I found all kinds of corruption. I used to get death threats. I got drug seizures the first day I was there, and I hadn't even been to their academy.
Wow.
But I used to study their books anyway, the 18 code, the 19 code, the books. So I was already pre-read. Why wouldn't you? I've got time to do it while I'm working out, doing the other stuff. And I shut down the Mint at the San Francisco Mint at 88 Fifth Street, right off Market at the old Granite Lady. And that is where they were smuggling gold coins out, little like something like this, a gold coin. That's brass. It's just a token. But it'll give you an example, a full ounce. So they claim they put it into a package and then they countersign it, tape it up, registered certified mail. And if you ordered 2 ounces, you only got one or maybe nothing. And
Wow.
so females were smuggling it out. So after I left, they shut it down. Too bad. Oh well. I didn't get any nice letters of commendation or medals out of that one either. So that's how bad it is.
So when you officially got your top secret clearance,
Before Secret Service, yeah.
yeah, in September of 74, like
They do it.
how did that
It
go
takes
down?
10 months to get a secret, top secret clearance for me, because I moved around every 3 years. So that means every place I lived, where was I born? And they go from before I was born, my parents, to every place I was stationed or transferred to throughout the United States and Japan. And
So
that,
it's
and
like the ultimate background check.
oh yeah. And even then, if they really wanted to get really in depth, they could. Even more so, just like I went to certain embassies in Tokyo because I was doing research for a paper in high school, you know. Or if you knew something about the Clintons, they went to Moscow during a summer vacation. Some really? Why did they go to Moscow? Were they working on a thesis or something, or were they just going there firsthand to see what communism looks like or something? You know, there's always some other ulterior thing there. But I met people from all over the world when I was in high school. Just being in those areas. So it was kind of a wider range of experience where most Americans, born and raised in one city and county and state, maybe never left, didn't join the military, weren't law enforcement, didn't work for the government. So it kind of narrows you down, even more. And some people weren't so lucky as I was to be trained and highly trained and learn foreign languages since I was in fourth grade.
Yeah, there's a lot of trust there, like that you have to like be cleared. Mm.
Oh,
So I mean, there's
I was around the
credibility
president of the United
behind.
States with a loaded
Yeah,
gun. I was around Anwar Sadat, Menachem Begin, and Jimmy Carter. If I was a nut job, think about it. you know. So, and I protected Ford, Carter, Queen Elizabeth, not to leave her out. Um, uh,
Overseas or when she was visiting the
when she was
US?
here, Blair House across the street at the White House at a state dinner when Ford was there. There's pictures of Ford dancing with her. So I'm 6'3" minus an inch or so. Ford was about 6'3" or 4. So if he was dancing with the Queen, she would be up to about the shoulder level. So she had to be like 5 foot something, 5'5", 6, maybe 7 if you're lucky, right on there. Shirley Temple was shorter than that. She would be like up to my chest. That was another person I ran into. Uh, I protected some prince from Saudi Arabia at the Watergate Hotel in '75, and they were doing All the President's Men. They were still filming that movie. Robert Redford, Dustin Hoffman,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But at the Watergate Hotel, uh, they were having a state dinner right around the time that Ford was going to have a state dinner, but they also have a command performance. And at the end of the hall, which is like 10 feet away, was another room at the end of the hallway. That was Barbara Streisand, her room. And I'd rather be over there, but either way. But it's like, wait a minute. She's Jewish, this guy's Arab. Maybe I'm supposed to be here for one or the other. I'm not sure. Either way. And then I heard a noise at the end of the hallway, and I heard this guy say, "Hey, Jew, are you ready?" And I couldn't believe I heard this guy say that. And I looked down to the left. There's James Caan, the actor, and he's short too. And I've run into tall actors, believe me, Ron Ely, Jacques Mahoney, James Arness, and what was Chester? What was his name? I ran into him playing tennis at another location in San Diego. But he came right up to me. He looks right up at me and says, "God, you're big or tall or something." I said, "Yes, sir." I'm quiet. I'm disciplined. I have to be careful what's said and all that. But he was very friendly, you know. And I've seen some that weren't so friendly when Carter had their reception line. Jack Nicholson came out when he was doing his long hair thing. It was either before a certain movie, so it'd have to be in January 20th, 21st, 1977. And he came out one of the other exits, and I was in the earlier part during one day shift, back the same night for a midnight or another shift. And they were walking out. This guy, "Oh, I'm not going to stand." I'm paraphrasing because he was cussing a little bit. He says, "Oh, I'm not going to stand in line just to shake some guy's hand, and I'm just directing him towards the gate." Okay, right away, right through here, gentlemen. Just to initiate some sort of a contact with him. But I've dealt with John Denver. He was good. Hugh O'Brien. I already mentioned Barbara Walters. I mean, I took Andy Warhol's camera from him because he took an illegal snapshot in an area that I was at. Management supposedly seized it and they're supposed to take his film, but I don't think that was done. That guy was 6'5" or 6, so he was tall, white skin, like albino, very white hair and all that. But some of these people, they get around, and after they get through the first family, that was during the Ford administration, then they'll get their pictures and you can look them up. You can look up Jack Ford and Andy Warhol, and you'll see pictures where he was actually allowed. He used a different camera because I already took his other one. They probably gave it back to him later. But
When when all that was going down, what type of frequency weapons were being used?
oh, back then,
Yeah.
oh, hardly. Well, I don't want to say hardly. Let me recorrect that. When I stood duty at the Russian embassy, they used microwaves. NSA, CIA, everybody is monitoring, and the Russians and their intel people also had radio antennas on top of their building. And one guy actually got sick. That proves what you just said in a question is that he got exposed. He got leukemia. What does that mean? His blood got cooked. So don't stand around a microwave, within 10 feet or whatever. That's serious. Just like I'm not wearing my radio or phone, and I'm not wearing the plugs wired. In fact, when I was Secret Service, we had an earplug that was a tubular earpiece. There was a clear plastic tube, an air tube that went down to the waist with a control switch and all that, and the volume. That's where the wire goes to and ends right there. So therefore, you're not getting exposed to a wire up to the brain. Just to
Oh.
give you an example. But yeah, that proved a point. I moved around. I was still working out. I was 21. So I was 21 when I was Secret Service, and I remained active. Some other people, they smoked, they drank, their immune system was bad. Maybe they stood still too long. It's hard to tell. If they pulled people up with certain requirements, if I was in charge, I would make it a requirement that they had martial arts, that they didn't smoke or drink. Sorry guys, and certain restrictions so that they were perfectly healthy, so they could kick out the ceiling light like Bruce Lee, instead of having people that are old, overweight, and walking around like they're half dead. And some guy did die of a heart attack. Do you remember that part where the black guy came up to Hillary? He was on Hillary Clinton's detail, and he had an EpiPen. I don't have a prop, but I could use a marker. He was walking around with an EpiPen, which is an injectable. So when she went through her epileptic like seizure, which she did, he'd go up to her and find a place on the leg and just zap it in there, and then she'd be okay after a few seconds, you know.
So that happened quite often. I saw two different incidents. One where she was asked a question in a crowded room and she started doing a seizure thing. And
Oh
then the
yeah,
other one is I think the 9/11 memorial service where she got
right.
uh like carried off into a van.
She was stone cold. She looked like she just was ready to drop. And then all the agents and I really get a kick out of observing their responses, because I look at who's really doing something, and the females are some of the worst. It's like they're trying to look tough.
Oh
It's like,
yeah, especially on at the first shooting of Trump
oh,
earlier last year.
the
God.
left-handed fat girl who wasn't Secret Service couldn't find her holster, and you
Yeah.
don't put your gun back until the threat's gone. It wasn't gone, so she didn't know what to do. I don't know. And you're not supposed to wear your ponytail so that you can flip your ponytail around to see every time that
And
that.
you wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt saying that a lot of these are actors and there's the real service agents are
Well,
not
they
able to be
barred
seen.
after the other agencies. During an election year, they weren't Secret Service trained. They might be IRS, they may be ATF, they may be some other agency, and give them some basics or something. That's it.
So they were shuffled into those positions at some point from
Right.
another agency. Okay.
But it had to be Treasury with some association with Treasury Secret Service in some way. But a lot of those guys, they weren't experts at shooting. I was a distinguished expert. That means I shot every 30 days. Wake up, folks. How many times you go to the range? How about you cops out there or military? None of them. None of them went as much as I did. I got to the point where it was almost like, God, do we have to do it again? Gee, I just qualified the other day. It's a new month. Oh, I got to do it again. But I used to shoot so well that I could shoot the paper when it turned sideways. Now, I have to give a visual on this because it's kind of hard to. But you put the paper on the clip, and then you hit the switch, and it goes way back to the range, or it goes back to the other direction.
Hmm.
And then you got to shoot in the center, which is about the size of a 50-cent piece or a silver dollar, actually 50-cent piece. And if you want to, you keep shooting in the same hole if you're that good, 15, 25 feet. When you get further back, then it's a little bit different or a little bit more difficult. But at some point in time, I've done this 3 times that I can remember in my career, where as I fired off the round, the paper turned sideways and I ripped it right in half.
Wow.
It fell. right? Right in half, literally, right in half. So it's like, oh yeah, half of it went to the floor. The
That's
other half,
some dang good precision there.
yeah, and that was a 9 millimeter or 38 357 round, but even a 45. But I'm not bragging. That was just like, wow, I didn't
No, but
expect that.
that explains your marksmanship. Like
Exactly.
you're impeccable.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But if they gave me the Uzi, I always got picked first because my name was Carmen, so I'm always the first in the row, first in school, first to do this, first to do that. After a while, it's like, okay, come on, they're gonna choose me first. I have to always be mentally prepared. And I hate to wait. I
See,
hate
I'm
to,
all the way at the other end of the,
yeah, I
oh,
hate
I
to
meant
wait.
what the why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, first to do it, they'd say, okay, they'd show us how to do the Uzi and the briefcase thing. So, okay, Carmen, you're first. Okay, great. He'll hit the timer, hit the switch, or say go. I'll go up to the briefcase, slap it, grab it, whip it out, slap the stock, unfold it real quick, lock it, grab it, and I'm already firing between targets that are moving between other targets. And I wanted to do it again. They said, no, you did perfectly. You couldn't have done any better. Well, I could have just sprayed all of them down, kill them all. But the paper targets. But we shot targets that had pictures of people that look like agents. Besides the female with the big gun or the guy with a knife or whatever, doesn't matter. But yeah, you have to be able to discern between a target and be able to shoot at that target and stop that target from doing whatever it was doing. So anyway, um,
I got a question to
go ahead.
ask you. So what's up with the Men in Black?
The movie Men in Black.
Yeah, I guess it's a loaded question.
I
How far off is the movie from what's really going on?
I think it's really, really close. That's why they do it. Yeah, it's accurate. In other words, yeah. Uh, Emery Smith, who is a forensic technological type person that works on bodies, parts and bodies. I've talked to him too, and you could pull him up. He's gained a little weight since I seen him last time too. He would work on actual body parts and stuff like that. We've had contacts with aliens from other dimensions, other planets, and other solar systems, and or maybe even universes. And I'm only recently going, wow, we've got more than a couple of universes out there. Wait a minute, I thought universes was it. That's it. One universe? No, no, no. You got to keep traveling. It's constantly spreading open. It's expanding constantly. So how many universes can you travel at light speed or faster than light speed? And they can go faster than that. So yeah, that's a good example. That movie was pretty good. If they put it in the movie, it exists.
I like that answer. Yeah, because it's also they have to tell the public about
Well,
what
that's what they're
might be
doing.
happening, what they might be doing later.
Yeah,
So
they're giving you a little exposure. They're also testing you. But there was a guy that was at Area 51 that said famously, he's sorry he knows what he knows today because they've lied to us about everything. That's a lot of territory. What about religion? They lied. Religion is used to keep us under control. And the underground bases at Dulce, the underground bases at Area 51. I ran right past Pahrump when we had the Baker to Vegas marathon in '91 when I was doing the marathon runs in Vegas, Baker to Vegas. And I knew Art Bell, and he had a lot of antennas at his house in the desert. So he definitely had communications and stuff. But yeah, if you can imagine China Lake, they later claimed the bees were dying. I did a show based on that because the electromagnetic fields are all messed up. China Lake and Ridgecrest are synonymous, but one is divided by the other with a fence. And it's the largest naval experimentation base in the world, which means that's where they do the test bomb range and stuff like that. Not the same as Alamogordo, White Sands, or S4, different. You hear the birds? Black corvids. They're out
No,
there,
I'm not hearing
they're out there making noise because they want me to throw them something.
them. Your microphone's good at not picking up the outside noises.
Oh yeah. No, I can hear them. Oh,
I
now,
I'm curious about satellites
okay. Yeah, let's talk about
as
satellites, UAPs, UFOs. We already mentioned Lahaina. That was a satellite, so that means the ISS station. Do you think they're up there actually just screwing around with petri dishes and putting water with crystals and making experiments and back and forth? They're doing all kinds of top secret stuff as well. And I just saw a movie. I mentioned Spider-Man. That's a good example because in the movie 2014, I think was the one I was looking at.
I
Uh,
haven't watched that one.
they were mixing human DNA with alien or insect like arachnid, because Spider-Man got bit by a radioactive spider.
Hmm.
So basically, in the movie, they're describing he got bit by the spider. I can't remember if it was radioactive. It was supposed to be in the original movie storyline.
Hmm.
And then he developed all these super skills like a spider, which means he was 100 times faster. He could climb up the ceiling with his fingers because he would develop like little special hairs like Velcro. And then to the point where he developed a synthetic spider web that he could eject out of his skin.
Hmm.
I believe he had these devices where he ejected something that was semi-metallic. So if you know about uh, molecular structures, I'm trying to look for a prop or something here. Yeah, I've got an end table. I got all my supplements and all kinds of junk. Here's a piece of wire that's connected to a charger. If you take this wire, the strongest element, according to science in nature, is a spider's web, a silkworm, the silk from a silkworm, and one other object. And if the cells are lined up, one right after the other, its tensile strength is so strong you could support a ton or a couple of tons on this one wire, and assume it would be made of Teflon or not Teflon, titanium. So they've got exotic metals that they experiment with that we can't get on this planet. But why do they like to go after lithium and cobalt? Lithium and cobalt is what they put into the batteries, lithium in particular.
Hmm.
But if they take the wire and the tensile strength is so strong, you can imagine Spider-Man shoots it out, attaches, and he could swing off that, shoot another one, swing off and separate, swing and separate, and back and forth all through New York City. But the tensile strength of this stuff so strong, it would be like comparing Superman's molecular structure when he was born on Krypton. And they were just talking about that on a Facebook reel about L. This guy, I can't remember his name. It's not Bill Cooper, it's another guy. He,
Kal-El.
yeah, there you go. Israel. And I go, come on, Jor-El, Kal-El, L, right?
Yeah, and then the
The,
Elohim
the
connection.
molecular structure was so dense that under the sun of the Superman character, he was stronger than Kryptonians that came to capture him on that other earlier movie. So the science is there. They don't want us to know about it. Um, UFOs are solid pieces. They're not digitally made together. Bob Lazar, I just caught a little glimpse of something he said the other day on a previous interview. If you go inside of one of these saucers that are they're reverse engineering, they don't have sharp edges anywhere. There are no rivets. It's all molded into one solid piece, but they're all functional so that when you touch a certain item on uh, uh, the board or the control board or the light or the digital, even in the movie Dave Deere Stood Still, he would wave his hand over a panel and light up everything because of the lights are activated. You got fingerprints if you're human. If you're not, you don't have fingerprints. You probably don't have an umbilical cord. or a belly button. And I've had David Icke even talk to me back when I was talking to Art Bell back in '95. And he called me up and said, "Yeah, you were Secret Service? That's right. Did you work at the White House? Did you see the presidents?" Yes, I did. You know where he was leading. Did you get up and close a person where you saw their eyes? I said, "Yeah, but I didn't see any vertical slits." And they didn't shape shift when Ford went out to the pool in his swimming trunks, type of thing. So if they would, that would be the only time that they would probably do it out in the sunlight. Lacerda interview. Everybody should look up on YouTube. Lacerda interview. Lacerta. And it's worth taking a listen because I took notes on it, stopped it, paused it after I went through it the first time, and went back over it again just to take notes because I wanted to make sure I picked up on all these little essential details.
Yeah,
And
which I'm sure people are going to do with today's show too,
yeah,
because I mean we're getting a lot of information
oh
out of him.
yeah. Thomas Edward Costello was a security guard at Dulce, New Mexico, which is like 40 to so many miles northwest of Albuquerque. And you know, there's a place called Zorro Ranch just north of Albuquerque by about 20 miles, where Jeff Epstein used to bring guests in a ranch and an airport.
Oh
So
wow. Hmm.
separate discussion, but still, uh, Thomas Edwin Costello got a job at Dulce, New Mexico. The Indians also revered that area as going back way back thousands of years because that's where they had an underground entranceway to the mountain, which is where the aliens were already accessing some point in time. So somehow they got with the aliens, and supposedly we're being told we're working with certain types, but other types, they're making the oh, what's that term again? Where they combine the DNA of a human with another animal, like they
The
did
chimeras.
there. Yeah, I was going
Yeah,
to say chimera, just as you said it, even back into Greek mythology and stuff, right? So it's the same stuff. But some of them are being used for warfare. So if this one guy is a gigantic whatever, and he could tear holes through steel or something or interdimensional travel, but they had to be able to localize him in some way, they would use him to see if they could build an army in case they had to go against other civilizations. So they could do that. There was a story about a family that was up in Area 51 in the desert who somehow got on territory without setting off an alarm. That's kind of questionable because they usually have IRs and special sensors out there and thermal imaging and all kinds of stuff besides drones. And there was a family, security came up on them at nighttime. So you got to get the hell out of here right now. Drop everything what you're doing, get in the car and leave now. So the guy tried to grab his wife and kids, get them into the car, and there was something coming up to them at a distance, and it was scary, like a big daddy long leg humanoid spider looking thing. And he couldn't get in the car fast enough, and he told him to go anyway and leave. And this thing and security was nearby, and they were shooting at it, and it grabbed him and killed him. That's the story, allegedly, that I've seen by a couple of the whistleblowers that was talking to Stephen Greer. And I've talked to Stephen Greer for over 2 hours face to face, closer than what we're talking right now. And his eyes were normal, by the way.
yeah, I
And I've
I
got
was
his,
suspecting he was
yeah,
something else for a while there,
but
but
they've come after him too. He's suffered. I've got his number and contact information and stuff, but
he was supposed to do a big disclosure, I think like the day before 9/11,
yeah,
and then
he's
it
been
just kind
doing
of took the wind
disclosures
out of it.
forever. In my opinion, he's not going to be happy, but he's also disclosing that they're going to keep this up even up to and after Trump gets into office, where they're trying to make it look like an alien invasion. They've been predicting this for years. They're going to show holograms in the sky, which are just holograms. They've experimented with that stuff even in the Middle East and the desert. You know, they'll put a hologram of Muhammad or Jesus or Buddha
Yeah.
or somebody to scare these enemy bad guys, terrorists away because they're still in a different mindset. They're uh, not highly educated, although Babylonian stuff way back to Babylon, Hammurabi's laws and all these, very advanced in science in Persia way back then. And what's interesting is Persia is Iran today. If you get somebody who says they're Persian, they don't want to tell you they're Iranian. There's no such thing as a Persian passport this week, folks. When they do, I'll be the first to find out about it. But if they show a passport at the border or come through an airport, it's either going to be Iranian or some other passport. So there's no Persian, but it's kind of an inside government joke, sarcasm.
Well, it's like a Syria.
Yeah, exactly. But I've dealt with people from all over the world. So, but uh, yeah, this stuff gets interesting after a while. They're hiding something in Iran and Afghanistan, near India, Pakistan, and those areas. Iran is technically considered the center of the earth too, if you can imagine that. Although the electromagnetic fields were supposed to shift recently, and I heard that it shifted finally. It's not where the North Pole and the South Pole are going to just throw everybody off the planet and flip over. It's an electronic magnetic field that's going to happen. So when that happens, it adjusts all the other stuff. But if they have an electromagnetic field that's intact, that means certain radiation, the Van Allen belt, and all this other BS is either activated or deactivated a certain way. That's why they use gold. The aliens use gold to put in dust in the air in the atmosphere for
The
their.
monoatomic gold, yeah.
There you go. You said it. Uh, I mean, I know enough to get me in trouble. I mean, I know a lot of stuff, but um, when they look at that stuff, they said, "Oh yeah, if you have a nuclear event above the equator, the best place to be is below the equator because apparently it doesn't travel that way." So unless they drop it at the equator or below it. So if you look at some of the places, where do you think the continuity of government locations are? Oh, Australia, New Zealand, South America, Antarctica. And that's where Obama went to visit to show these people like Buzz Aldrin and some Orthodox priests from another church. And he showed them bodies and or spacecraft in Antarctica. Germany has always had that place restricted since the 30s, since Hitler was in power.
And why is that?
It's all top secret. You couldn't even go over there. If you did, you'd get shot down like they did with Admiral Byrd. Admiral Byrd went to North Pole first, flew on a plane, went into the hole at the North Pole, and was gravitated down to meet with some aliens. I know that story. And that's not a story, that's a fact. And he was not missing 4 hours of fuel and 4 hours of time. And when they released him, he went back on his plane as if he was still flying and never lost any time or fuel. Fuel is the key measurement. But the other time they went down to Operation, not the other operation, high jump, high jump. That's when they went down to Antarctica, but they had these saucers that had German, alleged German Viking runes on them. Maybe the swastika, maybe the Maltese cross, something like that. And they were kicking their butts. They didn't have the weaponry to fight them. They already had electromagnetic type weapons, lasers, and things like that. And the Brotherhood of the Bell, which was some sort of a time travel machine right there. So
Mhm.
they've had all that technology for years, but they don't want us to have it. We're just going to be so far behind that we'll never get to the Jetsons, where we're living above the sky, flying in these special devices that don't even put out any fumes, electromagnetic type deals. Just watching some guys diving off these cliffs and high mountains with their special uh, glide suits. It still takes a lot of huevos to jump off of a cliff on a mountain and fly and guide themselves down. And then they have a parachute just in case, so they can, the box chutes. I've seen guys jump off the cliffs near the beach and use the box chutes. And it takes a while to really get to really used to it and be comfortable with it. But I've seen guys that flew on those things and they didn't make it through a bridge. Body parts. It's like they might as well have put up a potato shredder. But anyway,
You're not making me want to parachute jump at
yeah,
all.
yeah, parachute and flying, two different things. But who jumps out of a perfectly good airplane? Blah blah blah. UAPs, the vibrational thing. That's what makes a lot of this stuff fly. If you look at Bob Lazar's stuff, I suggest people study Bob Lazar more than what they're doing. He knows what they're doing. They destroyed his life like they had been doing to mine. They literally wiped clean his existence off government records, income tax. You could always do that one. But he knows how to make a car engine run on water. And there's a black guy that they've been publicizing about that lives in another country. Might have been Nigeria, could have been Nigeria. Not to mention Nigeria scams, but this guy figured out, you could just put water in a certain type of a machine, process it. All you need is a battery to start it. Once you start it, if you have to use a battery to start, has a continuous generator where it would regenerate a battery, which is non-stop, continuous. So why would they make an electric car with batteries that are going to go dead? That is so stupid. It doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
it's inefficient. Well, the Elon Musk is a whole psyop.
Okay,
Like it's very apparent to me that
that
he's
guy's got so much money. He can make rockets go up, do their thing, come back and land, back and forth, back and forth. It's like ad nauseum. And yet, back in the 60s, Sputnik was the first one by the Russians with the dog. And then after that, we had other spy satellites and stuff, and the space race and all that. But
he's
yeah,
using old technology though, right?
exactly. Well, that's because of the money.
It's like
It's
trying to make
all about
a it's like trying to make a freight train fly is what
exactly.
he's trying to do. And it's like yeah, all the money involved, it's just a
Well, look at
time
the fuel.
waster.
Look at the fuel, the rocket fuel. And I'm thinking, look at the solid fuels versus rocket fuel. Look at thermite bombs and stuff that they did at 9/11 and all those things. They've got the technology to use a directed energy weapon, a DEW. And if your people out there were Googling Malik, which was a planet, supposedly had a directed energy weapon, and I guess it tilted the radar device down into the planet and activated it, and it ripped the planet apart, destroyed it because it was that powerful. It's kind of like
Wow.
comparing Atlantis, the Atlantis story way back when, because they had a diamond situated on some sort of a tripod or a situation, and the sunlight would go through it, and they would activate and magnify the sun's power to hit a device or the enemy or some mountain or structure, and it would just disintegrate it like a laser. Well, that was back in the 60s. So Atlantis existed, and they've got all the proof. It's under near Bimini and Atoll and the Bermuda Triangle and all these other places, or near Gulf of Mexico and other locations. But the technology goes back further than what they want us to know. They're keeping that technology away from us. Thousands, millions of years. Earth is what, 4.5 billion years old, supposedly. Then that would estimate maybe our part of the universe and solar system was about that when it's uh, planets forming. And it was small when it was small. Now it's expanding and expanding and expanding. That's why we have earthquakes and volcanic activity. That's part of expansion.
Yeah,
Uh,
and even if like on the other side of things, if let's say time has been a lot shorter than what we've been told,
oh yeah.
even if it's like tens of thousands of years ago, this technology's from,
Well, even in
it's still
religion,
being suppressed.
even in religious terms, it took God 6 days. Wait a minute, a day, a 24-hour day, or 1,000-year day? 1,000-year day. So technically, it may have taken God 6,000 years to build the solar system in our area or the universe or whatever, if you want to go that direction.
Yeah, I can
Then
follow
he
that.
rested on the 7,000th day year thing, or not. It's just a story about how they do it. I don't knock everything. I try to translate it because those are the questions that they don't want a child to be asking in church. Come back next week and we'll talk about that. Or let me get back to you on that
Yeah,
question.
the whole
Never
church thing
happened.
is really
Yeah.
it's bad.
But it goes back to the original saying, we've been lied to. So as long as they stall it off, but still look at the science. I mean, I study everything I can get my hands on. I spend more time on the internet on the computer than I ever did for years. I've been on a computer for over this type of a computer for over 24 years. Government computers, that doesn't count. That's something else where you're doing work, research, running people's names, license plates, and what's your social security number, and I can find out who you are real quick, things like that. Oh, you've got a warrant. Oh, sorry. Oh, that wasn't my name. I lied. Oh, well, tell me your real name. Because I had a guy do that just to share a story. And that's why I put suggestions to get the fingerprint systems and the special ID systems and the readers and all that. I got credit for a lot of suggestions, but some I didn't because they just don't want me to. The guy comes through and I ask him, he says he lost his ID, right? Yeah, like in the movie, I lost my ID in a flood joke, right? Okay, pull him in, pat him down. Okay, give me your name, something Smith, blah, blah, blah. What's your date of birth? Are you sure? You're not lying now. If you lie to me, that's a federal offense. I can arrest you and you can go to prison. No, 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 that's my real name. He's lying. So I run a thing through there and I trick him and I go, oh, well, you're sure about your name and date? Well, you know what? Unless you're lying, you've got a homicide warrant and you're going to get extradited and you're going to do time and maybe executed in Texas or someplace. Doesn't matter. Oh, shit, shit, that's not me. That's not me. I lied. I lied. Okay, give me your real name and your address and social security number so I can separate you. Otherwise, you're going to get picked up and you're not going to see the light of day for a long time, if ever. He finally gave me his real name. I ran it. He had a small warrant, big deal. But at least he figured out that that's how that can run. And I've caught people that way too. And yes, I can say that. I can do that. That's part of a technique that you can do. But point was, he actually came back within several months and thanked me for it because he was in so much trouble. He got scared to death, really. And
So
that's
you
okay.
would liken the government computers to more database
Oh yeah, they're all
driven.
connected. They can run your phone number through it. That's why I use death protection. Here's the advertisement for today. And everybody should get deathprotection.com/2024. They updated the address there. There you go. Deathprotection.com 2024. So that means that if you want to have a clearer connection through a satellite bounce, it won't get interrupted by the government or monitored, and I could call you up, talk to you for hours.
Mhm.
They can't interrupt, they can't pick it. Now, if it gets pinged automatically just because they're scanning everywhere, and I'm not talking about human scanning, also, I'm talking about above human level scanning, you'll get a possible disconnect or, oh, hello, hello, and then you hang up and you just dial it back. Or if you get a trashy signal and it's real weird, just hang up and redial it. It works. I've had it for a couple of years.
Now,
It's
when people go to that site, what would you be doing with that?
deathprotection.com 2024 and mention my name and you'll get a consideration and the discounted offer thing. It's like 120 for a year for the GPS blocking, cloaking. I should say it that way. Cloaking is first, which is part of the digital encryption. This phone right here is digitally encrypted anyway. It's DurXV LTE military grade encrypted.
And that's
It's
also why it's sorry. That's why you call and it says private number on it.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But I do that for a reason. If I call you, you're protected in the way that you're not registering my number when you call. And if yours is blocked, maybe that's blocking these other guys. I'm only worried about these third party intruders that are, violating federal law. They don't care.
Yeah.
At the alien level, they can violate everything anyway. And if you ask a president, like they've done on shows about aliens, they can't talk about it, literally. You could watch any interviews and they'll circumvent it, they'll sidestep it, they'll talk you in circles around it, and they can't do it otherwise they get offed.
So I guess I have a more directed question
Eh,
on this.
Go ahead.
All of the telecommunications are based off of ground equipment and towers. But
Satellite,
this, so like, okay, the
everything.
so the sat, it's also connected to the satellites.
Right.
Because I was under the assumption from what you said that like the satellites were used more as uh like energy weapons
No, no,
as it
satellites
flies
are used
over.
for communications as well, much more than Telstar goes back to the 60s. Did you ever watch the Man from Uncle series on TV?
No, I've heard of it though.
Oh, that was the greatest thing back then. I used to watch that all the time. Napoleon Solo, Ilya Kuryakin, they would have a little cigarette box and open up a little communicator, or they would whip out a pen and put a put a microphone at the top, talk on it with an antenna coming out of it. You know, some of us kids used to play with that stuff in the 60s, 66, 67 era. That technology was back then. Satellite communication was a big deal. And well, even now, but before, they tracked a bad guy down because he had a cell phone turned on and it gave a signal everywhere he went. So that means it transferred the tower signal from one 10-mile marker to another mile marker to another one. So everywhere your cell phone goes, you're still giving out a signal unless you turn it off. So if you're going to go out and do something you're not supposed to do, turn the fucking phone off, Joe. So, as a sarcasm. But if you want to do something else, you're doing confidential work, you better have something that's going to go through cloaking and GPS blocking. They can't drone me if they know, or they don't know where I'm at, or they can assume, but they can't locate me perfectly. Even a 911 call, if I did a 911 right now, they'd still have to ask, what's your exact location? Seriously. Cops use it, government agents use
I
it.
used to get upset because I've obviously had some emergencies in my life, like having to help someone who's fallen and stuff.
Right,
And I would get frustrated that like the
right.
911 operator doesn't know my location already, and I got kind of like cheeky with them about it.
Well,
But they,
it's a good tool. I used to get premonitions. I still do. I do the gematria stuff with a guy named Steve Wilkin on, he's got a website, Jesus Second Coming 2028.com.
yes, you sent me that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would give him numbers and stuff like that. And I was getting these urges where wanted to watch a movie called Warlock. And I go, wait a minute, I've got YouTube, but I went to the Russian site so you could watch movies for free. In fact, I just pulled up that Spider-Man movie to watch it for free. You have to be careful because you have to know how to figure out which one's going to be in Russian, what's going to be in Spanish or Arabic or Italian or some other language, and get the one that's in good quality in US English or whatever. And sometimes if you want to watch it with a subtitle, you can watch it. Go, yeah, I know my Spanish. And if they said something in Spanish and I know it wasn't what they said it was, they're sugarcoating it and using another term down below. But the key was I was watching Warlock for a period of time, and so I couldn't get it off my mind. I had to go watch it, just like The Alamo with John Wayne or some other movie. And there was a tie-in because Julian Sands, the guy in the movie, disappeared during the time, in the last couple of years. And he died falling off a cliff in Mount Baldy in San Bernardino, which is up north of San Diego County, Orange County, San Bernardino County. And as soon as they figured out where they found the body, the pressure went away not to watch the movie. And I said, that's it. They found it. I felt it. It's really weird. It's like an urge. Oh, I got to watch this movie. I've seen it 100 times. What do I want to watch it again? And I'll skip around, skip around. and see if there's a special scene. And they did show a scene where there was a billboard that showed "Welcome to Mount Baldy, San Bernardino" or something. That's where he would go mountain climbing within less than 8 hours. And I asked, they said 12 hours. They lied about it. They found his body already and they had verified his body. He still had his cell phone hooked up to him somewhere, but the problem is you've only got so many hours before the battery goes dead. And if you didn't have an access point or a point to hit 911 on it or the emergency button, you wouldn't be able to do something. But you can't think ahead unless you're doing it a certain way. So either way, but as soon as they found the body and determined it was him, then the pressure went away, and then within less than 4 to 6 hours, it went right back up again. That told me that they've identified and that was him. Then they confirmed it. So that's weird. Uh, but I've had that happen before in other movies. Is, well, why am I watching Houdini with Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh? It's an old movie, it's a classic and all that, but I'm watching it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But there may be another message in there that you're not picking up on. It doesn't mean it's got to be a certain movie, but that's how it is sometimes. See what I mean? So it's just
Hmm.
a method that I'm being picked to get a message. Sometimes you'll get direct contact. You'll hear a voice in your right side, right ear. Your guardian angel's on your right side in the middle of the night, 3 to 3:30, and I get up at 3 to 3:30 a lot. That means something's going on, and I don't sleep straight through anyway. And I actually heard my name. One time it was a female voice, white female, probably blonde, fair haired, my first and last name. Another time it was a male, white male, 25 to 30, my name, right side. I woke up, I saw something or heard something. So that was after
I've
kind of
actually
desert.
I've had those experiences laying in bed where I'm like drifting off to sleep,
Yep.
and it sounds like someone just spoke on one side. So yeah, I know
That
exactly what
means
you're
you
talking
went
about.
into automated REM sleep, which is what you're trying to do when you meditate to get into that special range. We're using both sides of the brain. I'm not using the right terms, but REM sleep is where you're supposed to get, where you get both sides of the brains are open and you're able to use the silver cord and communicate outside this dimension, that kind of thing. And your pineal gland has to be wide open. Once you've opened it, it allegedly stays open. No fluoride, no tap water. You are what you eat. So you eat pure food, pure water, and all that, then hopefully you're going to be okay. No drugs, no alcohol, and junk like that.
Hmm.
So if you're tuned in, you will get messages. You will get. You just have to recognize it. I don't know if I'd go around telling everybody, but I'm like an empath, and I go, yeah, yeah, yeah. There was a movie about a lady that was an empath. That wasn't the name. It was another name, and she literally would get messages and was able to heal people. So if you are properly lined up, aliens have more DNA strands than humans. If you're human, you've only got 2 or 3 strands. That's it. Aliens have upwards of 20 strands or something like that. So if Jesus had AB negative blood, born of a virgin birth through Mary, uh, X chromosomes, 23 X chromosomes, and then you're supposed to have 23X, 23Y, which is 46. Jesus only had 23X and 1Y, non human entity, God, or whatever. Could be an angel. Uh, but he still was able to work miracles. So you got to wonder about that too. And if he was able to do the same thing like a tall white, the Nazarene could do what they did. Exactly that. Could he disappear and appear? Could he go interdimensional and travel space and time? All these things. Yeah. So when people try to figure out above the human religious belief system and look at the science stuff, look at the other stuff as well, then they can put it all together as a well-rounded piece of information. I talked to a guy that I've known for years DARPA related stuff. And we talk about the Viking systems versus the other ones, the Titans. I always get it mixed up because I keep forgetting the other group. There were the Giants and there were Titans, but there was another giant group that had war before we know what we know about the world. And there's still
Nephilim,
leftover giants.
Nephilim.
Hey Kandahar, how you doing? Those guys. But
Hmm.
we're not getting the full story on the planet about the Great Flood. So
No,
not
and I've
everybody.
actually heard recently it might have been a lot of smaller area floods that happened at different times.
Well, the populated areas. And right now, the Tigris Euphrates is so dried up right now. We've got four alleged Anunnaki or fallen angels. And then the Pope was supposedly letting loose Lucifer, which is just totally against my whole understanding of this stuff. In a couple of days, he's supposed to release the fifth door, release Lucifer or Satan. Why? Why would you do that? So it doesn't make sense. Oh, we're going to let you out on good behavior. Oh, we're going to let you do. No, it's like the apocalypse timing thing is coming up. According to Stephen and a couple of calculations, and there's some other guys that are doing the same stuff worldwide, 9/30/2025. No, no, I back up. April 19th, 2025 is coming up. Tribulation. So 4/19/2025. Then you've got alleged second coming 9/30/2028. But then I recently saw something about 2029 because if Jesus comes back during this time frame, they still have to have certain activity that happens even after he returns before the 1,000-year reign and all these other things. And my other guy from DARPA thing, he's talking, oh no, we already went through that. We already had the Battle of Gog Magog at Megiddo. And I said, well, it's heating up again. Syria, you got Iran, you got Israel, and Israel's just going apeshit crazy right now with all the stuff. In fact, Biden was pouring money in the Ukraine, then he was giving Bibi an extra billion or something to hold off till after the elections to do stuff. And I said, well, if they got bombed 200,000 times with rockets and the Iron Dome didn't catch it all, they're raining down rockets from Iran through other proxy countries. Then why don't they retaliate? Because that's what I would do. You don't let the enemy hit you and just, okay, I'll get back to you in a week. I gotta go. I gotta go work out before I can go retaliate. No, it's got to be instantaneous. If somebody comes at you, you block it and you hit them. That's a martial arts move right there. So it doesn't make sense. And BB supposedly not to knock BB because I've got his email. I've communicated with those people before because I used to protect their embassy in D.C. But he would allegedly call up the imam or the mullah or the ayatollah. Hey, ayatollah, this is BB. We're going to retaliate and we're going to be over in your neighborhood in a couple hours so you can get your guys moved out of certain targets. And we're going after all the military targets in your area. Oh, thank you very much. Click, and that's it. Uh, that doesn't make sense, but $1 billion, I want to have $1 billion not to do something. You know what I mean? And it doesn't make sense. And then all they did was attack. It was a minuscule attack. Two targets that got hit were two casualties. That's it. Those people could have crossed the road against the red light and got destroyed or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're being so lied to. Then there's the radiation leaks along the East Coast. That means they've got a nuclear device. They've got a suitcase nuke. I used to bodyguard Stanislav Lunia, the former KGB colonel, highest ranking KGB defector during the Reagan era. No, no, it was actually, yeah, yeah, it was up to about 98 because I was bodyguarding him in 98. And I Wikipedia'd the guy's name and they put somebody else's face up there. I emailed Wikipedia, said, look, I'm ex-Secret Service and I used to protect that guy. That's not him. You got the wrong picture up there. They had some guy with dark hair and semi-bald with a Russian uniform on. That's not him. This guy was short. He had a goatee, white plus gray or white hair and white hair, and he used to smoke too much. He since died a couple of years ago. But it's just amazing that they'll still lie to us, and the CIA lies to us continually, and they pay Hollywood to lie to us. So every time they put the news on, you might as well sit there and figure out what they're lying about. You got to look at Alex Jones's stuff too, because that stuff is just horrendous. But
Yeah.
you still got to evaluate it. What are they lying to you about? Is like watching cartoons.
Yeah,
I
well, like what we were talking about on Beyond the Box the other night, using discernment, like taking in all of this information, but using your own discernment to figure out
exactly,
what's going on.
exactly. People have to learn to tighten down their filtering and screening processes more and more and more. Mine are so superior and tight, you can't get any more anal about it because that's what we had to be. We had to be perfectionists. We have to analyze everything as a possible threat. And I don't care if it's some guy's flashing a badge or flashing or whatever. I've pulled guns on people claiming to be Secret Service, and they were being stupid. They were out of town visitor types that didn't have their ID out on a lanyard that they were supposed to. And I'd confront them. I said, unless you guys want to go to the hospital real quick, if you make it, you better have your credentials out. Who are you, and what's your rate, and what do you do? Tell me quick. And I got my hand on my gun. I'm that quick. No problem. Boom, 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 boom. Reload. No problem. Pick up on L6 over at the other side of the, West Wing or some other place. It was on the outside perimeter of the other building, the EOB. These guys were being smartasses, thinking they could just walk in. That's why I'm there. You
So
know,
I have a question for you. Why
they're
are
good for me.
why are they not helping you financially being
I
retired?
am such a threat to national security because I'm a whistleblower, I guess. U.S. Customs was the worst agency, and Frank Serpico himself told me, "You picked the wrong agency. They are the worst." I said, "Oh my God." Well, I think I made a promise. I said, "Please, God, give me the worst enemy ever. I will fight them for us and go after them." What did he give me? U.S. Customs. So I was just doing my job, doing the best I could do, and I caught everything you can imagine come across the border. Everything. Smugglers, murders, robbers, rapists, pedophiles, drugs, guns, everything. Baby smugglers at the border, cold, right there. People with guns, cold, cuffed them up. I was lucky I didn't have to shoot anybody, that kind of stuff. So I was fast. That's probably what saved me was I was so fast. And there was a couple of cases where, yeah, you got to be careful, but I also drove the chase car and chased people and got those, and I never had one get away.
Wow.
So, and we're not Border Patrol, but Border Patrol totally separate. They've got their problems too. So they've got some corrupt people in their agency.
And they just don't like you talking about all this stuff.
Exactly. Because if they had promoted me anyway, the way I was supposed to, and I had death threats, had to get transferred back to another location. They should have promoted me anyway based on what I produced and my intel record. And I used to write so intensified, detailed reports and stuff. They would steal my reports, the agents, because they had to qualify and write intel reports to qualify each year, 15 reports per year. That's one per month. Basically, that's 12 right there. See, so if they're out there doing stuff, but they didn't know how to do it, I had raw activity every day because of where I worked. I had it every day coming to me. Hey, I'm going to write up an intel report, blah, blah, blah. My number. And if they tried to copy and paste it, they couldn't do it because you'd have to change something in the system, which is locked in. I even caught a supervisor that was trying to write a report that he could not have done physically because it was based on a suspect that I caught on a chase car thing. Big mess. A lot of intel about the murders in Matamoros, Mexico, the whole 9 yards, because the guy had a diary. So hands across the border. I work with officials in Mexico. I've worked as an armed agent or an inspector in Mexico and other countries. Secret Service, I was in other countries on sovereign territory at each embassy every night. So technically, I visited a different country almost every night when I was working on day shift or night shift.
So yeah, what was the drive behind you wanting to do all of this work?
Well, that's part of my deal. I knew it was worthy of the information that needed to be passed on through the computer so other people could learn from my experience and or the drug seizure, the intel, and the things that I got credit for. I've got a 2-inch binder that is 15 years worth of most of the stuff I've written. I never had to go to court, but it's the way I wrote it that these other guys were so impressed. I got told by a supervisor, female, that says, John, come here, come here. I said, what's going on? They're stealing your reports. No, really? Yeah, all of your reports goes through Intel and it's supposed to be distributed through the Intel databases. So it goes through Department of Justice, Department of Treasury, certain Intel inside agencies like oh, there's all kinds of acronyms or EPIC, El Paso Intelligence Center in Texas through DEA, Department of Justice, Immigration, and Secret Service and my former agency and stuff like that. So that means that they could look on how I wrote these things up, and they've got really good intel that would go through to share with other people about terrorism, narcotic smuggling techniques. They didn't want me to talk about those, and that's a big deal because they smuggle by tunnel, airplanes, military, ships, submarines, cars, pedestrians, tanker trucks, everything. That's how the CIA does it. Those are the ones that got upset, is the CIA. Those are the guys running the drugs. So when they're running drugs in tanker trucks in 8,500 pounds of cocaine, who do you think is going to get upset? Those guys. So they should have come up and said, hey, John, you're doing such a good job. Here's a promotion. Here's whatever. But we need you to tone it down in a certain area because there's a top secret project involved with whatever. And then I would probably have to agree to disagree at a certain point or report them.
They were BSing you to try to cover for them and the corruption they were going through.
Well, I'll give you an actual example without mentioning a guy's name because he's pissed off. The CIA gave passports through an immigration official in Europe and ordered him to give passports to people like Mohammed Atta, to give him a passport visa in his passport so that those guys could come visit the United States under a student visa or something, and then they could get together and do the 9/11. Well, based on that, he betrayed the country, but he didn't know it. So technically, they ordered him to do something that was illegal, and he followed through with it because he was following an order no different than the Nazis in World War II. I'm following orders. I'm just following orders. And then they hang those guys, allegedly. So uh, you can't trust them. But that's my background in Secret Service where you don't trust anybody. And they couldn't fix that. They couldn't work around it. So that's why it was a problem with me because they could control me. I'm just doing my job. And yet the retaliation got that extreme. I had death threats. I still worked. I tried to protect my family. Eventually, the Internal Affairs didn't help me out. And I've actually got information. A guy named Thomas J. Miller, U.S. Customs out of Chicago, he got retaliated too. And he told me on a message not too long ago, and I tried to forward it to Trump and other people. But I'll tell you on the air that they solicited him, Internal Affairs from Customs and the FBI solicited him to set me up, to set up John Carman. I've heard about it and I never heard direct evidence until I saw that message. I said, oh my God, there's my evidence right there. They can't do that. That's entrapment. It's against the law. They committed a felony. Why aren't they being arrested? So as soon as Trump gets in office, I wish I had a phone call right now that says, yeah, they're going to take care of it. They're going to fix it. But I need people who are listeners or watchers on the show to contact people that they think they know will get it to Trump or Homeman, but he was Border Patrol, Cash Patel, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, or any of the others. And to reconstruct this situation because they're not protecting the whistleblowers. You don't hear anything about protection. I helped out Abraham Bolden, who was the first black Secret Service agent, and he just got his pardon months ago. And he's on the list. It just came out the other day. But he waited like 60 years. I don't want to wait another 60 years. I'm already 71. My health is not that good, you know. Um, I don't have money coming in. Social Security doesn't pay me, and they lied about that too. They openly lie right to your face. What they're doing is high treason. 18 USC 2381, and they're taking bribes and all these other things, and they're Democrats, and they think it's okay for them to do that. We're talking Civil War stuff. There's a lot of rumblings going on about that. If they hurt President Trump before he gets in office or afterwards, they have been rumored to stall off the inauguration with a fake incident of some sort, alien invasion or otherwise. Then they could preempt the inauguration, put a standby person in place, God help us, and then that way they could stall it off. And by doing that, that would cause another problem. So we're looking at some serious times that people are not, they're not realizing it's still not over the hump. It's still, we're still waiting so many days till the 20th. So
Yeah, and it just keeps inching so
yeah,
slowly.
it's too slow for me because if he won the election, why don't they do like the Speaker of the House won the election yesterday on the thing yesterday? They all voted, took a couple hours, give or take. He's Speaker of the House. He swore the other guys in. They're good to go. Why do they have to take so long on a friggin' presidential election? You know why? Because they want to finagle and jury rig it, or jerry rig it, or rig it and lie about it, and they still haven't punished anybody that messed with it before.
Yeah.
Trump could have done the Insurrection Act, no problem. Martial law, oh, you can't do that. Oh, don't do that. So what if they have to? If they follow orders from the commander in chief, it's legal. I suggested stuff before, during, and after Trump was in office. I already told them about the voter ID cards that Mexicans have. They have a better voter ID card, but they still appoint their presidents. So what's the point, right? But it's got a picture ID, verified address, a thumbprint or fingerprint, verified information on a chip with all the other stuff. And you could vote anywhere, and you could vote online if you had to. They could have the results in an hour or two. If everybody voted at exactly the same time and give them an 8 hour or 24-hour time frame, and they still haven't counted the votes from the military overseas. They always screw with that. Lloyd Austin, the Department of Defense, I actually apologized, saying that, well, they made a mistake. And when they shipped out the voter ballots or something happened to them. That's high treason. If it was me, I would have arrested him and all of his cohorts,
Yeah.
put them in Gitmo and let them have waterboarding sports. You think that they wouldn't do it to you or me? They would. No questions asked, you know. I suggest people look at John Kirikow's interviews. I started to watch him again. I've changed my attitude about him. There's a couple other CIA guys that I don't particularly care for, but he goes into a lot of detail about what they did and the mistakes that they made with Al Sabeda. There's a joke YouTube that I caught, saved it years ago, where they're doing some of the torture techniques where the guy's chained up and he's stripped naked and they're throwing ice cold water. He's got a mask or a thing over his face, which is supposed to be against the Geneva Convention, um, and sleep deprivation and all that. You could die from sleep deprivation if they do it over 7 to 10 days. You won't last 7 to 10 days. Food within a week, water within 3 to 4 days. So there's these certain medical time limits. And they violated a few of them. Some they probably didn't care, but they've done it. But if people realize what these people do, there's so many ways that they can work things out, you know, and they're lying to us about all the benefits, all the natural resources and stuff like that. And yet people are just kept in the dark and in the antique, ancient ages of things, their way of thinking. You got a problem with the Muslims? Hey, what's that place in Mecca where the big stone is that they worship 5 times a day? Just threaten to blow it up, vaporize it. Oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. See what I mean?
Yeah.
No problem with that. They'll just vaporize it. Where was Muhammad? Where he saw the angel Jibril, not Gabriel, Jibril, the one with the feathered arms and stuff. Oh, that was in Petra, the cave. Yeah, yeah. Wait, vaporize that too. Do you think they have any problem vaporizing the Mount of Olives or the Rock of the Golden Dome? They've already got the third temple set up somewhere else. They're anticipating doing things. So it's just a mess. All this religious stuff, the way they're doing it, they're just manipulating people, and they don't care. They've got alien technology. They could fix all these things. I've got actual pictures of those aliens that were in Las Vegas, and then they seized their cameras and film. And I've shared that. That's 7, 8 foot tall, ape-like furry structure, humanoid with a tail. And when they undulated their shoulders, it's not the same as a human. And the shoulder is different. And they had a thing in the forehead right at the sweet spot or the third eye location. Because technically, you had a third eye in that area, or you still do, but it's embedded. Uh, they don't want us to know that stuff. Why? If there's another dimension, there's aliens here. Of course there is. Then why aren't we talking about it? Yeah, Emery Smith. Need to look at Emery Smith videos and get him on. And I don't care if he's mixed with Gaia and those other guys, but still, you have to be able to filter out what the information is and how they know it.
Yeah. Use
Oh
your own
yeah,
discernment.
like Captain K, Randy Kramer supposedly went to Mars, and he was interviewed by Clyde Lewis on Ground Zero. And I said, no, there's something wrong with that story because I talked to my contacts. I said, no, you can breathe oxygen on Mars. It has oxygen, so you don't have to have your lungs or body altered. So then somebody lied. Or he thinks he's got erased because he did the 20 and back program. Okay, well, maybe. Super soldier stuff, exactly the super soldier profile. And I've studied those guys as well. And some of them may exist. And there's people out there that really believe it, but they don't have too much proof. And there's people that will just tell you they are. So unless they got some sort of, solid something that they could show you, or or x-rays, or uh, tattoos, or some other markings or runes, or the stuff that was at Roswell, that stuff was different and unique. It's not the oldest language, Sanskrit. It's not Egyptian. It's not runes. It's something else. So DNA, you need DNA. Take your finger and go up and touch that UFO, and if you're tied into it, you can touch it. It'll let you in. Or it's got a scanner that will scan you, knowing your DNA, and you're allowed, because you're allowed to go on the ship. Then you get in that way. You don't have to have a key. You don't have to have a code. You don't have to punch a button. You can just walk right up to it. It scans you, and you walk right in. Somebody else, they can't get in. That's a pretty good security system. And those guys don't even have seatbelts on their seats. That's more funny, interesting information. But yeah,
Wow.
Bob is our stuff.
Well, I'm going to be putting all of your information in my description
Okay.
under this video. So everybody, you've heard just like the tip of the iceberg of John's story here. But if you want to help John in any way, His Venmo account will be linked in the description.
Yeah. John,
Um,
John dash Carman, CARMAN dash 17, the number 17. So, yeah. Yeah, I'd
and like,
appreciate the tests on that because I don't think it's working lately because maybe they're not donating. But yeah, I could use donations.
and
Uh,
his Gmail is john.a.carman at gmail.com.
yeah.
If you want to contact him that way first, if you want to help him out, that's one way of doing it. I
Or they could go
recommend
through
that.
you at the show.
Yeah, or just reach out to me and I'll get you guys hooked up uh with getting
Yeah,
that
I just
rolling.
don't give out my phone number. That's the only thing I kind of restrict because I already got enough telemarketer stuff to deal with. But it's a game. Some people try to get me and talk to me privately, and I've screened so many psychologically messed up people. It's kind of a joke. If I have time, I'll talk to somebody. If it sounds like they're just playing a game, then I don't have time for them. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll also link all of the customscorruption.com
Yeah,
links
they
to
used to
page
they used
two
to
and all that.
prevent me from posting this stuff on Facebook. So I tried to get the short shrink your link 9CH site. I don't even know if they're still active or not. But customscorruption.com, go to page two. It's got all the cool pictures. Page one would take you forever to scroll through all the intel and
Yeah, it has a lot of just John's history. You see all the photos of him with all of these high profile individuals, even people that are still in office to this day, which is just wild to think about. It's like we have elections for what? Like you said, it's selection or appointment,
oh yeah.
but you're there to protect all these people. You did your job well. And do you have all the proof here to show that this is what you did
We
for a
just
living?
protect them. We don't promote them. We don't talk about politics or religion. Taft
Yeah,
Act.
you're assigned to protect their lives. So
Yep.
all politics are aside on that. Whoever it is that you were assigned to protect, you did your job. So, and I respect that. But yeah, I'll that link will be in the description here. And it's been great having you on here, John. We
Yeah,
went
we'll do
over
some
two
more.
hours. Yeah, we got
Watch out for Jimmy Carter thing because they're lying him in state. Some of his old agents on his detail will be with him until he's laid to rest in Plains, Georgia, right next to Roslyn. God bless Amy. She's still around. And a lot of them, they got grandkids already, you know.
yeah,
Uh, and there was some negative stuff some guy named Ron Kessler was trying to put out. And I said, no, that guy's just trying to write a book. He's trying to lay blame on some stuff that he doesn't know about. Uh, in other words, they only put half the story out there. Can you imagine? Yeah, I'm familiar with the order. They didn't want some of the agents to say good morning to him all the time. Because if you realize what he had gone through the night before, or the stuff he's stressed about world peace and all the things he's got to worry about, you don't want to be distracted constantly by, oh, good morning, sir. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning every day. Good morning. But it's too much. In the military, you salute and that's it.
hmm
In the Secret Service, we could do all kinds of stuff. We don't have to salute. We don't have to stand attention. We can give a head nod. That's enough. I did that when Anwar Sadat, Menachem Begin were meeting with Carter in the private part of the mansion, and I was the only one there with a loaded gun to go and check on them. And I came around to look at the other side where they're standing. I nodded, waved, and went right back to where I was going to position to block anybody who might try to get into the building. Then it would get serious. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but they're always trying to overstate and dramatize and sensationalize stuff. They're not Secret Service. That's all you have to ask them. Hey, Kessler, what were you? News media? You weren't Secret Service? Then go pound sand. That's what I would tell the guy.
yeah,
Or talk to me and let me tell you what really happened. You know, there were good people. Leave them alone. Other people, those are political type things. We kind of like we have to sugarcoat other things in that aspect. But still, I was a professional, did my job. So maybe I'll get that phone call from Trump. Yep,
Hopefully.
still working.
Yeah, we're gonna have you back on here very soon. I I've loved talking with you today,
Yeah,
and I just
that's
want to
what I
keep us.
do.
I
You
want to
do a
keep
free
us
fall and
within.
you'll get more stuff done than if you tried to go through a thing, but you could
Yeah,
still raise questions. Other people can have questions. Email them in to you or to me, and then try to get it on the air in another time. And if it's really hot, then we can do an emergency show or something. That's how
yeah,
I would offer.
that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Well, yeah, thank you for being here today, John, and thank you for everyone that was watching. I know Norma and Brenda popped in the chat earlier, but I haven't been watching too much of that because I've just been uh my interest is just all right here talking with you one on one. So, besides that, there's going to be a lot of people that will watch this post live, and
Hey, and you have permission to share it with the outside the box. You can play a segment. Somebody suggested that they do a Facebook reel where you take a certain
oh
segment
yeah, I
and
know
post it
all too
down.
well. Yeah, I've made hundreds of those types of short format videos, so there I'll make a few from here
Yeah,
and
if it
test the
looks and
waters.
sounds good, do it. You know,
Yeah, I might as well, because then that gets more reach out to this main interview here. Like it gets that 1 minute clip that's like it's like
exactly,
a teaser. Like and
exactly.
then they'll come on over here and see the whole thing. But yeah, yeah, we'll be doing this again soon for sure. But yeah, I want to thank you for your time. Like this has been amazing having you here for 2 hours, and I'm looking forward to the next two
All
because
right.
I mean I think we flow really well here, and yeah, I just don't want to keep you too long and let everybody be able to digest what was discussed today.
We can go deeper. All
Excellent.
right, man. Good talking to you.
All right, thank you, John. You have a good one, and yeah, I'll see you soon.
All right, take care. Call me back if you want.
Sounds good.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, everyone. So this is Stephen Yisell. I'm signing off, keeping it short, and yeah, until